Hey guys, I am BlackOpsAmazing. Welcome back to another zombies video. Now today in GOROD KROVI we have a cipher on what we think has to do with the Mob of the Dead plane. We've been seeing this flying throughout our zombies maps, including Shadows of Evil. We've seen it on the roof in the Giant. We also see it in Zetsuba no Shima. The only two maps we haven't seen the plane in is GOROD KROVI and Eisendrache. Other than that, the plane has mysteriously been appearing in the sky within our zombies maps. Now we had an explanation from Nero in Shadows of Evil where he tells us that strange things are going on, and one of these is an interdimensional convergence. He says he learnt about these interdimensional convergences, and the basic explanation of what one is when two universes collide and something, in this case the Mob of the Dead plane from a different universe, will bleed into, in this case, the Shadows of Evil universe. So in basic terms, the Mob of the Dead universe and the Shadows of Evil universe have collided, in which we see things start to converge together, and the plane bleed into the Shadows of Evil universe just for a few seconds before it disappears and moves on. Now we don't exactly know where, back into its own universe, back into another one. That was the explanation that we got before, and that's how I thought it worked. And since we see the plane in the Giant, although this time it isn't flying, it is actually crashed on the roof, I thought once again we don't have any other explanation other than to say this is an interdimensional convergence, and the plane, instead of crashing into the Golden Gate Bridge, is bled through into our universe and crashed on top of the Giant. Now we have the cipher in GOROD KROVI, which is in Zulu language. So this has actually been translated by people who do speak, or you can go onto Google Translate, which you won't get a very good version or a very accurate translation. But I mean, if you speak Zulu language, please be free to put this translation in the comments section below. But I've tried my very best to translate it, and this is what it says. It was a strange flight, the plane crashed. We passed through time and space, in a way, flying over areas that shouldn't even be there. There was no sign of any remains. I don't know where it landed. Honest. So although it doesn't specifically tell us, we can guess this is about the Mob of the Dead plane. And from the sounds of it, it is from the perspective of someone on this plane, so one of our Mob of the Dead crew members. The Weasel, Finn, Sal, or Billy. Now there are actually quite a few different ways you can interpret as to what this cipher says. Because it's in Zulu, it's not a difficult language to translate, but there are different ways you could go about doing this, so you can get a few different translations, but generally they all say this. Now, this is a very strange cipher, because it's clear from this that the Mob of the Dead plane has crashed. It has crash landed, and the crew on board, being the 4 inmates, have no idea where it landed. But if you read this cipher is very different to what we are used to. In fact, the way that it's read, or the way that it's made out to be, is like the Mob of the Dead characters are speaking to someone. At the end of this, they say, "I don't know where it landed. Honest," which makes it sound like they are actually talking to someone. The plane has crashed and they are telling this person that they have no idea where it's gone. Honest. So let's take a look at what's happened so far with Mob of the Dead and how we could have led up to this event. Now we know, and before I carry on, can I just say, if you haven't already seen my new explanation of the Mob of the Dead storyline, I've got an amazing response off you guys. Honestly, it was an amazing video to make. You guys have smashed over 8,000 like ratings already. So definitely, if you're confused about that storyline, check that video out at the end. I think it's really gonna help you out. But getting back to the main topic, so we begin with Mob of the Dead, where our 4 inmates are sent to prison. They are imprisoned on Alcatraz Island for committing these crimes. They were all part of this one mob, this one gang, and not long after being imprisoned on this island, the Weasel came up with a foolproof plan to escape. And so on New Year's Eve, with the fireworks being a perfect distraction, with the mob thinking they would make enough noise with the explosions that the guards wouldn't hear them escape, they set their plan into motion. They escaped their cells, but not long after, the Weasel's plan fell apart. The plane was never built, and this frustrated the other 3 inmates, and so instead they decided to make makeshift weapons, lure the Weasel to the rooftop, and kill him on the night of New Year's Eve. As we know, Sal, Billy, and Finn were then captured and sent to death by electric chair not long after. With all 4 of the prisoners now dead, they got sent back to Purgatory on the night of the Weasel's murder to replay out that scene. They were then stuck in an infinite time loop until they broke the cycle. Now, as we know, part of them attempting to escape the island was to build Icarus, the plane. They built it, they would then fly off the island, but every time they attempted to escape, they would always end up crashing into the Golden Gate Bridge. This was part of them being trapped in this infinite time loop. There was no way for them to change this. And that time loop would just keep replaying over and over again. They could keep trying to escape and build the plane, but every time they would only end up a few hundred meters before they crashed into the Golden Gate Bridge. But as we've seen in Zetsuba no Shima and Shadows of Evil, we see the Icarus plane flying over the map. And if you actually listen carefully enough, in Shadows of Evil at least, you can actually hear the characters screaming on the plane. Now we thought we had a small explanation from Nero in Shadows of Evil as to why this is happening. It was because of an interdimensional convergence, whereas I said earlier, and this is just a basic explanation as to where universes would collide and an event, in this case Mob of the Dead, would bleed through into our current universe. In this case would be Shadows of Evil or Zetsuba no Shima. It would bleed in for a few seconds and then disappear, hence why we saw the Mob of the Dead plane in Shadows of Evil and Zetsuba no Shima just for a few seconds because the universes are merging and bleeding together. But we've recently heard from Dr. Monty through a wisp in GOROD KROVI some new information that could potentially explain what's going on. He told us when we opened up the portal in France, that's when everything went tits up. That's when the world turned inside out, and we now learn everything messed up when we opened the portal in Origins. This was actually the beginning of all of this. And although that may be a reason as to why we are seeing that plane, that still doesn't explain exactly what's going on. We know it's from one of the characters on the plane, so either Sal, Billy, Finn, or the Weasel, and they are saying it was a strange flight. The plane crashed. Obviously, when they entered this plane in Mob of the Dead and they built it for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever time, just as they did before, they most probably would have thought, once again, it's going to crash into the Golden Gate Bridge. But this time, obviously, things were different. Instead, they flew into the Shadows of Evil universe, the Zetsuba no Shima universe, maybe through different dimensions, different universes. We don't know exactly where it's been. It could have been anywhere. But obviously, it was a different location as to where they thought they were going in Mob of the Dead, hence why they are saying it was a strange flight. The plane crashed. We passed through time and space, in a way flying over areas that shouldn't be there. But it then finishes by saying, there was no sign of any remains, I don't know where it landed. Honest. This clearly tells us the plane must have crashed, but one of these characters is telling us they don't know exactly where the remains are. So it's possible that they jumped off before the crash and the plane carried on for a few hundred miles and maybe crashed later on down the road. Maybe they jumped off before the plane went into another universe, hence why they can't find it because it's crash landed in a different universe. We don't know, but they finish with saying honest, which tells us that they are actually talking to someone. They are telling someone that they don't know where the plane landed. Now, who would the inmates be saying this to? I mean, the most random thing could have been they crashed in a field and they're telling, for example, I don't know, a farmer that, you know, we can't explain why we are in your field, but we crashed on this plane, but we don't know where it landed. Honest, that is the true reason why we are here. I mean, it could be a random farmer questioning them as to why they're in his field. That's just a random example. But knowing Treyarch, it's a lot more complex than that. I thought maybe it's Dr. Monty. We know he's the one who's been watching over our characters, so there's no doubt he's been seeing and knows about the Mob of the Dead inmates. So maybe just like he's been speaking to our characters, he spoke to them and said, why are you here? You're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be trapped in this infinite time loop in Alcatraz, in Mob of the Dead. Why are you flying about these different universes and why have you crash landed here? And the inmates could simply be saying to Monty, look, we don't know who you are, we don't know why we're here, but we're on this plane and it's crash landed and we don't know where it is, honest. So they could simply be talking to Dr. Monty. Again, that's another mystery. But I was also thinking, in the Giant, unlike in Shadows of Evil and Zetsuba no Shima where we see the plane flying through the sky, this time in the Giant we see it lying on the roof. And I was thinking maybe this is the crashed plane that they are on about. It's possible that these inmates jumped off a few miles back and maybe it crash landed on the roof of the Giant. And this cipher is explaining exactly why we see it on the roof, because the Giant one is different. That's not how we're used to seeing it. We have no explanation as to why it's on the roof, and this possibly could be it. One of these inmates is telling us that the plane has crashed, but they can't see any remains. They don't know where it's landed, and that's because it's crash landed on top of the Giant. And that could be a reason as to why we are seeing it here. We don't know, but the strange thing is, our characters were supposed to be trapped in purgatory on Alcatraz. We know in real life they are dead, but in purgatory they were supposed to be in this infinite time loop. But clearly from this cipher, they have somehow escaped the time loop. They have traveled through these different dimensions, different universes, and still in purgatory, or at least we can assume they're still in purgatory. They are dead in real life. They're actually in a different location as to where they're supposed to be, which just links into everything in our zombie storyline right now. 115 displacement, universes converging, the fracture of the world. This has caused everything to just be not where it's supposed to be. We've got loads of things messing up in our universes. We've got loads of displacement, and this could just be another example of that. I've tried my best to explain explain everything I could think of, but hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you want to help me out, let me know your thoughts in the comments because I love reading your opinions. Then please do put them in the comment section below. If you haven't already checked out my Mob of the Dead storyline video, again, I will link it in the description. I really think it's going to help you guys out if you haven't already seen it. Thank you for watching. Leave a like rating. Make sure you are subscribed for more zombies videos, and I will see you all within the next video. Thank you and goodbye.